Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Perseverance Mindset Podcast. I am your host, as you know me, John Zedser, and we're coming to you once again from our famous Dialogue Den here in our wonderful, wonderful studio. And we're glad we can have all of our Perseverance pioneers with us again today. Post Memorial Day, honor and remember our heroes now and always, never forget. And welcome to another powerful edition of the Perseverance Mindset Podcast, where history meets resilience. In this episode, we will uncover stories that helped shape our world. And today we're taking a voyage beneath the surface, both literally and historically. That's right, as we explore the incredible rediscovery of the USS F-1, a World War I era submarine lost off the depths of San Diego over a century ago. And with recently released high-definition images, we're not only witnessing a naval marvel frozen in time, which is incredible, which it is, but honoring the 19 sailors that went down with this submarine. This is our first episode after our Memorial Day tribute, and we wanted to discuss it. It's a technology triumph and the power of remembrance after Memorial Day. So let's dive in. I want to touch upon how submarines were game-changing in the world of military technology, in our abilities, and what we can do, how it helped shape the world, just Navy travel in general. And submarines were still experimental when the Class F boats were first commissioned in the early 90s, such a long time, over a century ago. Think about that. It's incredible when you think about how far we've come now to using these little drones that can literally do so much damage just from remote control in a certain radius in a facility and a warehouse miles and miles away, often countries away, when you think about it. You know, the USS F-1 was one of the first of the Navy's earliest submersibles, just 142 feet long and with 300 horsepower engine and an operational depth of around 100 to 200 feet, and doing these missions during World War I with them. Just incredible. But she was a part of something greater, America's growing investment in naval innovation. We had to get to this point. We've come a long way since the Merrimack in the Civil War. We've come a long way since that. And the future wars would be fought beneath the ocean surface before World War I, predating that, again, shooting above land with the USS Constitution and old Ironsides. This submersibles were a long, long awaited advancement in military and naval technology. So anticipating that future wars will be fought beneath the surface as much as it's been above surface. On December 17, 1917, during a fleet maneuver near Point Loma, California, the F-1 collided with her sister vessel, the F-3, due to visibility issues and communication error. Again, we're going back to 1917. Could see where a communication error here and there could have some issues. Long pre-diesel at that time. So with her sister vessel, it had collided the F-3 due to communication and visibility issues. The result was catastrophic. The F-1 sank in just 10 whole seconds. Whole submersible, a whole submarine, 10 seconds, sinking down again. And 19 of her 22 crew members perished. The incident marked the deadliest U.S. submarine disaster of the time, and then she was gone from view for about 100 years. Now, with the new light of this recent discovery of a century ago, we are able to actually go more in depth on this submarine disaster. And earlier this year, a joint team from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the U.S. Navy revisited the final resting place of the USS F-1, 1,400 feet beneath the Pacific Ocean, utilizing cutting-edge undersea tech, including Sentry, an autonomous vehicle that mapped the ocean floor. So this vehicle goes in and maps the whole ocean floor before we even send these little tiny machines down there to get a scope and a lay of the land. And Alvin was the deep diving submersible operated by humans. The tech the technology of that group, and the team captured crystal clear images of the submersible's remains over a century ago. It's just incredible. Imagine this: the steel hull still upright, conning tower still intact, torpedo tubes in place. Everything is still silent, revering, and reverent. It's more than a wreck. It's a war grave untouched by time. It's incredible, amazing, and it's preserved by depth and darkness. So how far have we come in this amazing discovery? What makes this rediscovery even more incredible is the technology that made it all possible. 100 years ago, sonar didn't exist. Submariners navigated by a compass, sound, gut instinct. Today, robotic and human piloted vessels can map a deep sea terrain in 3D. Just like going to your iPhone today, typing in an address, you can see buildings and landmarks and, just physical objects of those objects in 3D, and transmit those images from the ocean floor in near real-time circumstance. Isn't that something? But why does this all matter? Because history just isn't in the books. It's on the ocean floor, in wrecks, in artifacts that we are all consistently finding out daily, weekly, monthly. All those discoveries. So by uncovering this F-1, we're not just using technology, we're bridging the past with the future. And it's an incredible time for all these advancements to witness and experience that other generations just didn't have the ability to do. And that is really something to be alive and a part of. This episode that we're talking about today, all this stuff with this submarine that was found rediscovered over a century ago, is exactly right after our Memorial Day special. For many, it's a time for barbecuing and time off of work. But for those who understand the weight of that service, the weight of that sacrifice, it's truly sacred when you think about it. The men of the F-1 weren't killed in combat, but they died in the line of duty, testing the boundaries of what was possible in naval warfare at that time. And their sacrifice paved the way for the next generation of submariners. As you hear this, take a moment of silence. Think of those 19 names lost to that sea. Think of the thousands more that gave their lives so others can live in freedom. History does live on, not just through headlines, but through remembrance and acknowledgement of that service, that debt. Now, going back into this, the rise of submarine warfare. Let's talk about that. Let's pull back at the bigger picture. The F-1 was a part of a global shift in warfare. By World War I, Germany's U-boats were devastating Allied supply lines. Submarines were no longer experimental. They were more strategic. And the U.S. Navy took notice. American F-1 class boats like the F-1 were small but critical. They helped refine tactics, training, undersea engineering. Without them, we wouldn't have reached the nuclear-powered behemoths of today, these massive submarines, these nuclear submarines that could literally end the world if all had been launched at the same time and could just devastate the planet. We wouldn't have gotten to that level without these brave men and these type of ships that have done the groundwork for decades, centuries before getting to where we are now. The F-1, while lost, shaped an evolving strategy: stealth, speed, underwater dominance. And there's a lot to be said about the courage of those folks that did engage in these test studies, that did help advance naval warfare a century ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Let's not forget that every submarine is also a pressure chamber filled with humanity. Imagine serving on a 142-foot vessel underwater in 1917. There's no GPS. You can't just type into this little gadget in your phone and find out where you are. There's no sonar. There's no tracking system. The most then you'd have a map of kind of knowing where you should be, following the correct coordinates and the correct longitude and latitude. There was no air conditioning, no escape. Those men just didn't ride technology. They embodied perseverance. And that's why we're bringing it up on the Perseverance Mindset podcast. I know we have a lot of great history lovers out there, and this is military history, right up our alley for all of our listeners. The F-1 sailors lived and died inside a machine that was much risk as a weapon itself. They are America's first underwater warriors. They left behind a legacy of remembrance, and we won't forget their sacrifice on the Perseverance Mindset podcast. So as we close today's deep dive, I want to challenge you. Go visit a war memorial in your city. Read the name of someone you don't know. See the sacrifices of people we just talked about within this submarine crew of these 19 members that never returned home. Read their story. Visit an online naval archive. Start with the Naval History and Heritage Command or Woods Hole site. See photos of the F-1, the submarine we were talking about in today's episode. Let the silence of that wreck speak to you directly. And if you're a fan of history, like I am, like I want to encourage all of our listeners and all of our Perseverance pioneers to be, you're just waiting to hear more about stuff like this that happens, and more stuff comes out, and you get more fascinated with how naval warfare has advanced, or just warfare in general, just the evolution of how warfare was fought then to now, just how much we've advanced. And just as the F-1 was once cutting edge, today's submarines will one day be artifacts of history too. What will the future generations say about us? What legacies will we leave behind? And again, this is the Perseverance Mindset Cast. And I want to thank everyone for listening to our show today, because perseverance isn't about surviving hardship. It's about honoring those who did and building and shape a better world forward. The ocean doesn't forget. It holds stories in silence and shadow until someone with courage and curiosity comes searching for that knowledge. It has been an absolute pleasure to be talking to you today on our podcast, your home for truth, history, strength. Keep going, keep persevering. I am your host, signing off from our famous dialogue den. Stay brave, stay bold, and most of all, stay persevering, everyone.